to be on with all of you. I really appreciate and value you guys taking a few minutes with me. It's an interesting time that we live in. I think that we have a chance as real estate professionals, you guys have a chance to truly change your family's whole life forever in these next couple of years. I think we'll look back at, 3 years, 5 years from now and say, this was the ultimate time. So by way of introduction, let me share my let me do this. Let me kind of share with you guys quickly a little bit of my story, and then I'll share screen. I have a couple things I want to share with you. I'm actually Nazar's neighbor. We live probably one street away from each other. His son, one of his kids, his son comes to a little activity we do every 2 weeks. My wife and I have some of the kids about the 10-year-old age. We have a 10-year-old as well that come over to our house, and so really admire that kid. He's a really sweet kid, and so I really admire Nazar and his wife and the way that they've raised their family. I'm from a place called Salt Lake City, Utah. I live in southern Utah now. Came from a divorced family at age 12. We moved 13 times in the 7 years through our teenage years. I have no college education. I used to work at a mall kiosk. Now, if you're on the chat, if you're old enough to remember the mall, put the word mall in the chat real quick. So for all of you young people, the mall is where all of us old people used to go when the Amazon was a river. We would actually hang out this place called the mall. And for those of you that were old enough to do this, you remember we would walk around, kind of aimlessly walk around. And then there was these people in the middle of the mall that worked at these kiosks, and you tried to avoid them and not make eye contact with them because they would like suck you into their mall kiosk. Guys, I was the mall kiosk worker. That was me. That was my job. I sold animated Bible videos at the mall kiosk. And so 25 years old, I was introduced to my first business. I have no college education. I got a little baby, he's a little 1-year-old boy. I'm married, and I hear about this business and I kind of just go for it. Long story short, I became the number 3 earner, the national spokesperson for this company. I was in every Barnes & Noble and Borders newsstand around the country. By the way, this is back in the day when we had Barnes & Noble and Borders too. This is a long time ago, okay? And I thought I had the tiger by the tail, was making things happen. Long story short, the company we were distributing the products for, one day was in business, one day was out of business. And so I lost everything. Like, I was below zero financially, back on credit cards, back on taxes. At one point, I moved my pregnant wife and our 2 kids into the loft of my wife's parents' garage. 27 years old. I'm a grown man. I live in the United States of America. I'm working 2 part-time jobs. My 2 babies sleep in the closet above the loft, in the loft of my wife's parents' garage. I'm starting another business. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Is this ever going to work for me? And long story short, I built that business. It took me a number of years to kind of get to a point where it was a full-time business. I ultimately, was speaking all over the world, speaking in Moscow and Omsk, Russia, and Almaty, Kazakhstan when I was 29, kind of touring through the former Soviet Union. And I've gone on to build 5 different multi-million-dollar businesses. I've spoken in almost 30 countries around the world now. My current company, I came in 10 years ago as a consultant for this company. It was a nutrition company that it was in business for 25 years, but it had 8 years of declining revenue. So it was a couple $100 million a year in revenue company, but was going the wrong direction fast. And I came in originally as a consultant to help them kind of transform this company. In that process, we created a very simple social sharing model, kind of a give-get model with an app. We acquired 4 million customers in the last 8 years. We've done over 2.5 billion in revenue, paid out well over $1 billion in commissions, and created just a really cool company. And I share all of that story with you, my friends, to say this. I used to listen to an audio series by a guy named Jim Rohn. Someone put Jim Rohn in the chat if you remember Jim Rohn, right? Jim Rohn, for those of you that don't know the name, is Tony Robbins' mentor. And Jim Rohn gave a weekend seminar one time in 2004, and he had all these great speakers, and you know how it is, you hear all the motivational speakers and so on. And I was listening to their stories. I was in my white Toyota Corolla with 240,000 miles on it, driving around. And what Jim Rohn said is, we now have enough testimonials and enough personal experiences to conclude that it's possible to create and to design an extraordinary life. So write in your notes, it's possible. And I remember thinking to myself, I knew it was possible for all of those people to create and design an extraordinary life. I just didn't know if it was going to be possible for me to create and to design an extraordinary life. And my friends, I now get to share with you from my own personal experience and from my own testimonial that your dreams and your goals are possible, and that it's possible for you to create and to design an extraordinary life. And so let me see if I can share my screen here real quick. Tell me if that pulls up. Nazar, give me a thumbs up if you guys can see that. All right.
Yep.
Okay, let me walk you guys through this. I want to talk to you because I think we're in such an interesting time kind of in your business cycles history and in the history of our world. It's a time of crisis right now. And, you know, we have, even though the inflation numbers came in today a little bit down, we still today the highest inflation we've ever had in 40 years. Wall Street, this is from Bloomberg, says that a recession is coming. Consumers are saying it's already here. You tell me, you know, is it here or is it still on its way? We have global conflicts and global wars. In the Chinese character, so in China, they write in characters, right? The Chinese character for the word crisis is a symbol, and the symbol means two words. It means danger and it means opportunity. And so it means both. And what I want to share with each of you is this. This is separation season, my friends. This is your moment. This will be a time where I want to encourage you to get into what I call at a zero mode, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But this is a time where you get to separate yourself from your competition. I feel like as a brokerage, as a business idea, the 5-bit realty concept, this is a separation moment where only the strong will survive during tough times. It thins the herd. You know, it's like the elk herd, the sick one dies, but the stronger ones remain. The old business models, the old antiquated business models, the people that they're not bringing a lot of value to the marketplace, they're not going to make it through this. It will be a separation season. And this is actually your moment to separate yourself. And so what I want to walk you through is 7 steps to conquer crisis. And here, find the mute there. So the first thing I'll share with you is we want to set your intention. And we talked earlier about at a zero. Here's what I want you to be thinking about. In this next 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, as we come out of this thing 5 years from now, I want to encourage you to set an intention to go into at a zero mode. At a zero mode means what? It means that you add a zero to your family's net worth. So if you're worth 10,000 right now, your family's worth 100. If you're worth 100, you're worth $1 million. If you're worth $1 million right now, you're worth 10. If you're worth 10, you're worth 100. This is the attention I've set, you know, for myself and for our teams. I'm telling people, like, this is your moment, because everything will go on sale. You want to maximize your income earning potential right now, minimize your expenses, get your house in order, your financial house in order. And then we're going to go build some cash flowing assets in these next number of years, because everything will go on sale and you get a chance to really, go to the next level in your life. I do a lot of work. How many of you guys are familiar with John Maxwell? Does anyone know that name? John C. Maxwell. He's a leadership author, wrote the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Someone put the word Maxwell in the chat if you know that name, John Maxwell. So Inc. magazine said he's the world's foremost authority on leadership. He's really an interesting and amazing guy. He's written 100 plus books, 35 million copies. I went to Costa Rica with him doing a country transformation where we teach developing nations principles and values. And there's about 8 of us. It's kind of a small group. And as part of this trip, we went to the U.S. Embassy, met with the ambassador. We went to the head of FIFA for their soccer team. We, had kind of this whole kind of different experience with all these amazing, people that we met. One of them was at a local college university, kind of in the jungle of Costa Rica. There's about 500 students. John's interpreter was a guy named JV. JV is Juan Verraken. Juan is the best interpreter I've ever seen. He's not just great with the language. He's great. He can almost mirror John, like mirror his actions. And John, if you've ever heard him teach, will sit on a stool and he'll have like a high table next to him, and he has his iPad, and his content's so rich that he doesn't have to bounce around the stage. He just shares this really deep wisdom content and people just eat it up, So John's out there sharing. These kids are college students. So let's call them 18 to 21, 22. So they're kids, right? They're just starting their professional lives and finishing through school. So John's teaching, and all of a sudden he goes like this, guys. He just stops and he kind of sits back in his chair and kind of puts his hand on his chest. On his chin. Like something hit him, like something like hit him. And he sat there and thought for a second. And he said, if there's only one thing that I could share with you students that would have the most impact in your life, it would be this one thing. And then he just kind of sat back and was like thinking about it, like this profound moment. Well, guys, here he is. He's 74 years old. These kids are 18. And here's going to part this one thing that would have the most impact in their life. 5 seconds have passed, 10 seconds have passed, nothing. 15 seconds have passed, hasn't said anything. 20 seconds have passed. He finally stands up off of his stool and he walks to the edge of the stage and he holds his arm up in the air, straight up in the air like this. and he's dead silent. And so all the students are kind of looking around like, what's going on, right? 30 seconds have passed, 40 seconds have passed. Well, Juan Vraken, JV, he stands up off his stool and he walks over, stands right next to John, and he holds his arm up, his arm up like this. So they're both standing there. No one's saying anything. 50 seconds have passed, a minute's passed. Finally, one of the Costa Rican students, it's a young woman, she's maybe 18, 19 years old. She stands up in the audience and she holds her arm up like this, and then slowly someone next to her stands up and someone next to her, and next to him. They all stand up, hold up their arm. So John's been standing there now for a minute plus, and he says this: if there was only one thing that I could share with you that would have the most impact in your life, it would be this: live an intentional life. He said, most people have uphill hopes and downhill habits. And he said, all success is all uphill all the way. And you don't accidentally go up hills. You only intentionally go up hills. So my friends, as we start this discussion of how are you going to separate yourself? How are you going to use this time right now in this new economy to separate yourself from your competition, to separate yourself from your current income, to separate yourself from your current net worth, to where you look back at this 1 year, 3 or 5 years and go, what just happened? I just added a zero to my net worth. You have to live an intentional life. You have to build uphill habits, not just uphill hopes. Aristotle says excellence is not an act, it's a habit. He said, therefore we are what we repeatedly do. And so you want to ask yourself, what are my habits? What is the plan? What time am I waking up in the morning? What are my morning routines? What are my nighttime routines? What are my habits in the way that I work with people? How often am I on the phone or, prospecting? How often am I following up? What are the routines and the habits that I can fall back on that I've intentionally crafted to take me where I want to go? You want to live an intentional life. The second thing you want to do is own your R. Now, there's a simple formula I want to encourage you to write in your notes, and it's E plus R equals O. I didn't invent this, but I'm going to share with you some perspectives that I've kind of pulled as I've studied this concept. E plus R equals O is event plus response equals outcome. So event plus response equals outcome. So the first lesson, I want to share with you 3 quick lessons that you can write in your notes. Lesson number 1 is that the E doesn't equal the O. In other words, the events of your life don't equal the outcome of your life. What happens to us oftentimes is we feel like, man, because of what happened to me, the events of what happened to me, that's why I am where I am. That's why I am who I am. The way that I was raised, what my parents said, the way that the system that I was raised up in, the events that happened created the outcome. My friends, we're not victims to the events of our life. We're victors to our response to the events of our life. And so you actually get to own the R. You get to own the response. You get to live an intentional life. You get to choose literally right now. The word decision, you got to make this decision. The word decision comes from the Latin word. Decision means to cut. The D means off. An incision in Latin meant to cut in. A decision, cut off. Literally, you can say to yourself, I'm going to cut off all other possibility right now and live an intentional life. I'm going to cut off all other possibility, and I'm not going to blame or complain or whine or make excuses anymore in my life. I'm not going to. Why? Because I'm going to own my own stuff. I'm going to own my own R. I'm going to own my own life from now on. And so it's a rid and raise. Write this in your notes. Rid and raise. It's like a pulley system. You want to rid yourself of all entitlement, and then you want to raise your personal responsibility. So you rid yourself of all entitlement, you raise your personal responsibility. And right now in our economy and in our world and in our country, man, this isn't what we're being taught. Right now we're being taught that, you are a victim and you've been victimized. And here, listen, I'm not saying we haven't been through very, very, very challenging things. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, the more that you rid yourself of all entitlement, that someone owes you something, the more you'll raise your personal responsibility. And this is the moment you own the R. This is the moment you change your life. Second lesson you'll learn from the E plus R equals O is the R is react, not respond. My friends, great leaders don't react, great leaders respond. So how are you responding right now in your life? Bruce Lee called it a mind like water. He said, if you imagine this, imagine a beautiful, pristine pond or lake up in the mountains. If you take a rock and you throw it into the lake, what happens? How does the water respond? Do you want to know what the answer is? The answer is totally appropriately for the size and the speed of the rock. In other words, it responds totally, it doesn't over respond or under respond. It just responds totally appropriately. So for us, I want to encourage you to take a deep breath when stuff happens. So you don't instantly fly off the handle. You don't instantly react. Instead, you take a deep breath. You give the electrical current that comes up your spine to go get all the way to the frontal lobe of your brain, which is your logical part of your brain. Okay, life's tough. A lot coming at us fast right now. A lot of pressure, a lot of stress, putting the families together, making the career work. I'm going to get to the logical part of my brain. And then you ask yourself this question: how am I going to respond in this situation? Here's another great question to ask. What does how I respond say about me as a leader? When your kids do something that you are ready to fly off the handle, take a deep breath and say, how do I want to respond in this situation? And how does how I respond say about me as a leader in your business with your clients? When there's, how it is in real estate, sometimes it's a fire drill. There's stuff happening fast, like, with rising interest rates, the deal might be falling apart. Listen, how are we going to respond, not react? And then the third lesson I think we can learn from the E plus R equals O is that your R creates an E for others. In other words, the way that you choose to respond will create an event for other people because we affect each other. And so I want to encourage you to say, how am I rubbing off on people, particularly as we work? I know that a lot of your business is virtual. I understand that, but we still affect each other. There was a study a number of years ago that said that if you had an obese friend, you had a 57%, they had 12,000 people in the study, by the way. If you had an obese friend, that you had a 57% higher likelihood of you being obese, even if the friend lived remote, like lived away from you. You weren't close to each other. They said that it could spread like a virus because we affect each other, both positively and negatively. HeartMath.org said that the feelings of your heart emanate out 10 feet from around you, like in a presence. And they said that you're either a germ or vitamin C. Have you ever walked by somebody and you say, I don't know what the deal is with that guy, but something's off with him. You didn't even talk to him. Or you say, I don't know what it is about her, but she's really seems like a nice lady. And you didn't talk to her. You can almost feel people's emotions. What I would share with you is this: are you a germ or vitamin C to the business? Are you a germ or vitamin C to the brokerage? Are you a germ or vitamin C to the way that you're showing up? Your response that you take total control of will affect other people. And so you want to control that response. All right, number 3. How do we overcome crisis? How do we separate ourselves? You want to adjust and you want to adapt. My friends, just doing what's not working over and over and over and just doing it harder is not a great strategy. Sometimes when the market shifts on us, we got to adjust and adapt. Sometimes when, interest rates are constantly fluctuating, we got to adjust and adapt. We got to get better. Jim Rohn's mentor told him, he said, Jim, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. He said, don't wish for less problem, wish for more skill. That's what we have to do. We have to adjust and adapt to get better. We have to improve. A friend of mine went to a Tennessee Volunteers basketball game with the former legendary coach, Pat Summitt, the late, great Pat Summitt. For those of you that don't know her story, she's the greatest female coach ever, one of the greatest basketball coaches ever. She had over 1,098 career wins, 8 national championships, and 31 consecutive NCAA tournament appearances. She was a legend. My friend goes to the game. He was invited to come into the locker room at halftime to hear the team, conversation. He walks in there, and Pat and her staff walked into a separate room. So it's like they had like the locker room, and then they walked into a separate room. The players are sitting there, and they're on the whiteboard. There was 3 questions that were written on the whiteboard. Here's the 3 questions. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? What do we need to change? And as Pat, my friend's watching this, and Pat's not saying anything. In fact, she's not even in the room. The players got up and with a marker wrote on the board, what did we do right? They answered the question. What did we do wrong? Answer the question. What do we need to change? They answer the question. Pat comes in, looks at the board for a couple minutes, makes 1 or 2 comments. Then they do a team, everyone put their hand in the middle, do a team shout, and then they walk out. And they went to steak dinner that night. My friend says to her, he goes, what was the deal with the halftime thing? You're the greatest coach ever. And you didn't even really say anything. You didn't even really coach them up. Like, you kind of let them do their own thing. And she said, when I was an early coach, she says, I was an assumptive leader. She said, I assumed everyone got what I got. They all saw what I saw. She said, but what I learned is to be a great leader, you first have to find your people in order to lead your people. And you have to ask some questions, my friends. We have to adjust and adapt to become better. It's like with our clients, what is our clients' biggest fears right now? What are their biggest concerns? When we're recruiting new agents, what are their biggest doubts? What are their biggest concerns? What are things when they're coming from another brokerage? Why did it not work out over there? Or what are they looking for with Five Realty that they weren't getting there? We adjust and adapt to get better. We build our skills, and so that we're better at what we do. All right, number 4. When times are tough, you want to increase communication. In times of crisis, you want to increase communication. This is a great lesson for us, both when we are, when times are tough with a buyer, meaning a buyer or a seller, there's stress in the transaction. We want to increase communication. That will calm things down. It doesn't mean it takes the stress or the pressure away, but it will calm it down because there's just good communication. In a marriage, if there's a hard time in your marriage, you want to increase communication. The more that you increase communication, the more positive things that they can see that we're going to get through this. Whenever there's stress, everyone's subconsciously asking this question. This is a good one to write in your notes. They're asking, is it always going to be this way? Whenever there's pressure or a lot of stress, people are asking, like in a marriage, if the marriage isn't going well, they're saying, is it always going to be this way? If it's always going to be this way, we make different decisions than if things are going to adapt and change. And you can increase communication to help someone realize it's not always going to be this way. You can lead with a little bit of vision. Here's where we're going. The transaction's not always going to be bumpy. We're going to get there. When you're recruiting new agents, listen, let me increase the communication as you're getting started. Make sure you're increasing that communication. In 2008, when we had the last kind of big, recession, our company that I was building at the time, it was like our revenue just started to drop. People were, dropping our products, and it was kind of a luxury type product at the time, meaning a luxury spend. It wasn't a necessity for people. And our CEO at the time instituted a thing he called Wednesday Wins, because no one was really winning. At least it felt like no one was winning. So we created these Wednesday Wins. It was like a little video that they would send out to the whole company. They would highlight someone in the company that was winning and doing positive things. And what he did is by increasing communication, by sharing some positive, by sharing some good things that are happening with your customers, sharing some positive things about the market, sharing some insights and perspectives that help them to feel more peace. That simple thing of Wednesday Win pulled us through that whole time. So for your notes, a good one to write down is this: when times are tough, increase communication. This is the way you pull people through tough times, is you increase communication and you lead with more vision. Number 5 is build skill above your talent. Michael Jordan is known as the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Now, LeBron, I don't know, maybe LeBron will pass him, but if you're my age, Jordan will always be the GOAT, the best ever. And you say, what made Jordan the GOAT? And the answer was not his height. In fact, when on his last championship team, he was the third shortest person on the team. There was 9 players taller than him on the team. So 6'6" in basketball, 6'6" compared to most of us is probably pretty tall. Basketball's not that tall. He was a great leaper, but he wasn't the only great leaper. He was quick, but he wasn't the only quick player in the league. In fact, there was probably some that were quicker. He was fast, but there was many that were faster. But what Jordan did is he built skill above his talent. Think of it this way: your talent is your floor, your skill is your ceiling. You want to build skills above your talent. And so, my friends, right now, to double down, to separate yourself in your real estate profession, we've got to build your skills. We've got to build your competency. Get better on the phones, get better on your invites, get better on your follow-ups, get better at walking through the paperwork, get better at knowing the market, get around the best performers in your market, get around Nazar and all of the other kind of key leaders within the organization and say, what do you say when they say this? What do you say when they say this? How do you handle when they do this? And get razor sharp on your skills. Jordan would have his hand in the passing lane perfect fundamentals. His shot fake was 6 inches, not 7, not 5. It was perfectly 6. His jab step was 6 inches perfectly. He was always on balance. He was the most fundamental, skilled player in the history of basketball. Now, he could have relied just on his talent. He could have relied on his jumping ability. He could have relied on his natural quickness, but he used his competitive nature to build skill above the talent. Your talent's your floor. You kind of come to the party with that. Now we've got to build the skills. Harvard Business Review just recently did a study that said that 29% of workers that are entering the workforce right now have the required skills, the necessary skills for this new job. 29%. So 71% of them don't. Here's what's interesting. They said if they don't create 10 new skills in the next 18 months, they won't be relevant. We've got to build new skills, build skill above your talent. We've got to go to that next level in your life, that next level in your business. And the way we do this is skill development. So here's the question for you. I want to encourage you to ask yourself, what is one new attitude skill I can acquire very intentionally? And what's one new business skill I can be working on very intentionally? Now, what's an attitude skill? Attitude is your enthusiasm, your passion, your energy. Attitude is you say, I'm not going to complain anymore. I'm not going to whine or blame anymore. Attitude is I'm going to accept full responsibility. Attitude is I'm going to be I'm going to bring joy into the room. That's attitude stuff. The thing I love about attitude skills, we can all do them. You don't have to sell anything. You don't have to make a commission. We can all build the new attitude skills. A business skill is learning how to present better. It's a hard skill, a business skill. A business skill would be things like learning how to handle tough questions and objections, learning how to negotiate. Negotiation's a skill. Here's what I love about skills, my friends. You can learn skills. You can build skill above your talent. That's why if you have that hunger to go to the next level, listen, you just apply that hunger into skill development. And again, within Five Realty, there's a ton of training and a ton of resources to help you build your skills. But you've got to take that action to say, I'm going to build one at a time, get better, improve, get where you're meticulous, you're razor sharp in every one. So my question to you is this: what's one new attitude skill you can develop? And what's one new hard skill or business skill that you can start working on right now to develop? Number 6 is get your house in order. My friends, we've got to get your financial house in order right now. We've got to get your financial house in order going through a tough time. There's 3 steps to wealth building. I want to encourage you to write these down. There's 3 simple steps. I was sitting down with a friend of mine. He built in his career, made about $70 million in his career. So he did a really great job over his career in his career earnings. But he's built about an $800 million net worth in real estate, with all of his real estate holdings and his investments. And I was sitting down with him. I have done a lot of investing with him, and I look at him as a real mentor. And he said, wealth building is only 3 steps. He said, it's relatively simple. So I want to give you all 3 of the steps. Step 1 is maximize your income. Maximize your income. My friends, we've got to maximize your income. In other words, we need to make more money. You say to yourself, okay, what can I do? I want to encourage you to write down 5 things you can do to maximize your income. You say 5 things I could do. Okay. Maybe I could recruit a new agent. Got it. Maybe I could, prospect more often and for an hour more per day. Like, what are the 5 things you can do to maximize your income? We've got to help you make more money. It's the fastest way to build wealth is to make more. So maximize income is number 1. Step 2, minimize your expenses. Minimize your expenses. What does that mean? It means that we cancel the gym membership that we haven't been to that gym for 4 years. You know what I'm saying? And by the way, we went 3 times 4 years ago. And so we take that $100 a month expense. I want to encourage you to create what I call a debt snowball. We've got to get you out of consumer debt. You know how it is in real estate and investing. There's some good debts we can do. There's good debt. There's also our country right now is being buried in bad debt. We're being buried in credit card debt. We're being buried in consumer debt. You don't need all that stuff right now. And so you want to get your house in order to where your trend line going up is maximized. You're maximizing your income. You're trending up, but you're also minimizing your expenses. Because what happens to most people is what? They make more and they do what? They spend more. If this is the lines kind of follow each other, we want to maximize and then minimize. Why? Because we're going to create a gap. And with the gap, we're going to do step 3, which is build assets. We're going to build cash flowing assets. So let me just go back to the minimize expense real quick. You want to create a debt snowball. Take the $100 gym membership and we're going to cancel that. Take the Hulu subscription that you don't even watch and you shouldn't be watching anyway. It's $50 a month. Cancel that. You start kind of going through the list and you want to create a debt snowball. I did this for a friend of mine here in St. George. I've done this for people literally all over the country, but I did it for a friend of mine here in St. George. He'd racked up $100,000 in debt. No one had ever taught him any sort of financial literacy. I was trying to help him get his house in order, his financial house in order. And he was $100,000 in debt. And we got to $637 a month of payments that he was making that he canceled. $637. He just texted me the other day and he goes, it's not $637 anymore. It's now $847. So it's almost $850 a month. $850 a month is about $9,000 a year. In the last 2 months, he's paid off $10,000 in debt in the last 2 months because we got intentional about this or getting his house in order. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to plow through his debt, and then we're going to take that money. Right now, he has $3,200 a month in payments that he's making. We're going to take that money, we're going to compile it, not go buy a bunch of other random crap. We're going to compile it, and we're going to then start using it to build his wealth. We'll connect him with a bunch of you to help him with some real estate investing, right? So I want you to write this in your notes. Write, poor people buy, middle-class people buy, rich people buy. So in your notes, poor people buy, middle-class people buy, rich people buy. Here's how I want you to start thinking about this stuff. This is how we add a zero, my friends. This is how you go from, like building a business to building an empire. This is how you go to that entirely different level in your life, entirely different level in your business. And if you're ready for that, I want to share with you how simple it is. Poor people buy stuff. So in your notes, poor people, they buy stuff. Middle-class people buy liabilities. They start making some money and then they go buy liabilities. Things that are, that cost them more money each month. Guess what rich people buy? Rich people buy assets, things that pay them each month. And so our goal is to help you build assets, things that are generating cash for you each month, even if you're not continuing to exchange time or money or time or energy. And so 3 steps to wealth building. Step 1, maximize your income. We need a trend line up, 5 things you can do to maximize your income. Step 2, build a debt snowball. How do we do that? We minimize expense. We got to build the gap. The gap, what we're going to do with the gap is step 3, which is build assets. There's never been a better time than what we're going to have in these next 3 or 4 or 5 years to build assets, because everything's going to go on sale. You'll have stocks on sale. Real estate will most likely continue to go on sale. We'll have things that are really great cash flowing assets for you to add that zero to your family's net worth. Number 7, we want to go back to the basics as you look for new ideas. So follow me through on this. One thing that happens during crisis is things shift. So for example, rising interest rates shift the market. We're all kind of trying to figure out, how do you navigate this? Do you want to know how you navigate it? You go back to the basics. You become brilliant on the basics. When Vince Lombardi took over the Green Bay Packers, the NFL championship trophy is called the Lombardi Trophy, as you know, right? This was the legendary coach. When he went back to the Packers, they interviewed him in his coach's office. They said, Coach, the media said, Coach, are you going to implement a new offense? Are you going to implement a new defense? What's your strategy there? Maybe you have some trick plays. Maybe you've got some cool special team ideas that you're going to do. Lombardi says, what we're going to do is we're going to become brilliant on the basics. What are the basics, my friends? Prospecting, follow-up, customer relations, customer care. It's the basics that we do. We've got to become brilliant on those. Get back to those. The last couple of years, that we had 40% of the money that's ever been printed in the history of humanity came into our market in the last 2 years, right? So money was falling from the trees. It was easy. You didn't even have to do the basics that much and you could make money. Now we got to get back to those basics. So you say, in my business, in your business, what are the basics that you can get great at? We want to get back to the basics. Now, you want to get back to the basics as you do what? As you look for new innovative ideas. The best innovative ideas come from us, meaning those of us that are in the trenches, in the field, out in the marketplace. We're the ones that create them. So McDonald's, if you were to buy a McDonald's franchise, it's going to cost you most likely about $1.5 million, right, to buy the franchise. They're going to send you to what's called Hamburger University. It's literally like their education system to get you to know how to run the model, to run the play, to run the system. They've perfected the system, as you know, they've got this thing dialed, right? Well, check this out. If you don't follow the system in a McDonald's franchise, they will revoke your license. They'll keep your money and revoke your license. However, the Big Mac, the Filet-O-Fish, the chicken nuggets, the Egg McMuffin, all of these items were not invented by McDonald's Corporation. They were all invented by independent franchisees, independent franchise owners that went out there in the marketplace and were, following the system, back to the basics, doing the right things every single day. But then like some little strikes of innovation hit as they were doing the basics. And then what McDonald's did is they said, hey, you go prove that model within the company, you prove it. And if it works, then you will scale it up to the rest of the company. And that's what they did. And these were all billion-dollar products. Each one of these were multi-billion-dollar products. So my friends, as the field, as us out there as independent entrepreneurs, we'll figure some stuff out. We'll create the Big Mac, as it were. But the way we figure it out is by getting back to the basics, brilliant on the basics, and back to the things that we're great at. Let me share one other quick thing with you guys, and then we'll wrap here. And if there's any questions, or I'll have some time here at the end as well. I'm gonna switch decks here, so I have one last story I'll share. So 2 years ago, let me send this. Let's see. 2 years ago on Memorial Day, my son Isaac and I went to visit the graveside of my my son's sixth generation grandpa, George Prince. And as you hear this story I want to share with you, I want you to know this story is not about George, it's not about me, and it's not about my son. My friend, this story is about you. And this story is about your life. And this story is about the legacy that you're leaving, and the person that you're becoming, and the story that you're writing. And this story is about your heritage, the people that have lived and bled and died for you to have this moment. This story is about your posterity, people that will come 5 generations from now, and they'll be at your grave. And I want you to think about you and place yourself in your shoes as you hear the story. So jump in the car. We've obviously never met George. George and his wife, Sarah, moved from England to South Africa back in the early 1800s because Queen Victoria had opened up some land. Land to them meant opportunity, meant financial opportunity. And so they moved this young family over to South Africa. And they were in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. And then they started warring with the local tribe. It's called the Social Wars. You don't want to mess with the social warriors. They would, one of the things they would do is if they caught you, but if they didn't just kill you immediately, if they caught you, what they do is strip you down naked. They would put you in a hot grease. They would lay you on these killer ant hills, tie you down, and then break the ant hills, and you would just be swarmed through with the ants. So you didn't want to be caught. In fact, during one of the battles, my 5th generation uncle John was actually killed in one of the battles. They would hide my 4th generation grandpa, their son Francis. Sarah would hide him under the laundry. She would kind of tuck him away so they wouldn't capture him or find him. Well, George was a farmer there, and one night he is working on his farm. It's about dusk, and he hears a voice behind him. The voice says, "George," and he turns around, and what I'm going to relay to you is a message that is in his journal. So it's a message that I'm just sharing with you what was in his journal. And it's also in his daughter's journal. But he basically has like a dream or a vision, basically like a manifestation. And he sees what is, I guess, like an angel, right? It's like this figure in a kind of a white robe. And the figure says, 2 men are going to come to your home, and they have a message that's a true message that you need to listen to their message and follow their message and their messengers. And George takes this, he goes and tells his wife, Sarah, my 5th generation grandma, about it. That's in 1853. 2 years later, 1855, they finish a long day's work on the farm, and they're sitting on their front porch, and 2 men come walking up to their house. And George turns to his wife, Sarah, never met these men in his life, and he says, "That's the 2 men from the vision. That's the 2 men from the dream." They listen to their message. They ultimately accept their message. They make the decision to travel 9,000 miles again from Cape Town, South Africa to America. In 1855, they land in the fall. In the fall of 1855, they were the last wagon train west across the plains. For you, those of you who are mamas, check this out. She had pregnant with twins and she brought her 5 kids. Can you imagine? They put them in a wagon train and they cross the plains. She ultimately delivers the 2 babies in the wagon train. They both die shortly after birth. They dig hand dug graves in the Western Plains, bury these 2 infants, and then leave them there knowing that they're never going to have a chance to visit that gravesite ever again. They finally get to Salt Lake City, Utah, where I'm originally from. And Sarah, she never emotionally or physically recovers, and so she dies as well. So imagine you're George Prince. You have this dream in your heart to create a good life for your family, dream in your heart to provide opportunity, and a dream in your heart to follow your faith, right? Your brother's now dead, your wife's now dead, and your 2 babies are now dead. He ultimately migrates to Southern Utah, where I live now, and lives out the rest of his days. So when we go there, my son kneels down next to this guy's grave, his 6th generation grandpa's grave. And he's like having like this, like basically like saying a prayer, having like this moment. And as we got in the car, I said, "Hey, bud, what was that moment like? What did you say?" And he said, "You know, Dad, I was thanking George. I was thanking him for his courage. I was thanking him for his resilience. I was thanking him for his faith." And he said, "Dad, I was thanking him for being the one." And my friends, here's what I want to share with you. You're the one. You're the one that an entire heritage of people have lived and bled and died for. You're the one that an entire posterity of kids who are yet unborn will look up into that family lineage and they'll say, "It was her. It was him. She's the one. She's the one that changed our family's life forever. She's the one that taught the economic principles that changed our family's life forever. He's the one that broke the generational curse. Abuse stopped with him. Addiction stopped with him. She's the one that changed the way that our family, that built the empire. It was her, it was him, and they're telling your story. If we were to go back the last 12 generations, we have your parents, your grandparents, great-grandparents, the last 12 generations. It's about 400 years, and there was 4,094 people that had to come together to create you. And my friends, for you to have this moment, the word decision we talked about, it's to cut off all other possibilities. I want you to know something, my friends. Every decision you've ever made your whole life, every decision you've ever made your whole life has put you on this Zoom right now at this moment. You made it an appointment to be here. Your life is not random. Your life has purpose and value and meaning. Partnering with 5, like everything you're doing, all of the decisions you've made you now are here. This is the moment. And 4,094 people over the last 12 generations have come together so you'll have this moment. And they've come together so that you'll be the one. And you'll notice you already are the one. And you'll also notice that it's not become the one. You are it, be it, live it, act as if you're the one. Step into it today, be your best self, give life all that you've got. If you're not giving life your personal best, what are you waiting for? When are you going to turn it on? When are you going to live with more urgency, more fire, more strength? You remember Marcus Aurelius, the famous Roman Stoic, said, memento mori, which means meditate on mortality. We don't get that long. He says you could leave life right now. He said, let it determine what you do, say, and think. My friends, you got to go for it. You got to go for your dreams, go for your goals, live a significant life. You got to go be the one today. Your heritage, your entire heritage lived and bled and died for you. And your entire posterity is saying, we need you to step it up. We need you to be the one for us. Be the one that sets the example. Be the one that has the courage and the faith and the resilience and the strength to live a life that we all look back at and say, thank you. We come to your grave 5 generations from now and say thank you and have our moment. And thank you for your courage. And thank you for your resilience. And thank you for your strength. My friends, that's you. You're the one. So love you guys, man. What an honor to come on here for a couple minutes and share this with you. Nizar, respect what you guys are building, respect the vision and the disruptive nature of the model that you guys you're doing, and just honored to be able to come chat with you guys for a few minutes. And I'm happy to jam if we need to for a couple questions or whatever.
I just want to say thank you. I knew that you dropped some fire and bring the heat, and you sure did. That was awesome. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you, brother. Honored to be with you.
Yeah. Anyone have any questions for Justin Or are you guys just fried in the brain right now with info? Okay. All right, awesome. Well, thank you for your time. Thanks for jumping on, you guys. We'll catch you guys next Thursday. If you have any questions, whatever, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I could always connect with Justin. So
Thanks, guys. Honored to meet you guys. Keep up the great work. Talk soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks,
Thank you.
Nazar. Say, everybody.
Sharing this with my family. Awesome.